A scion of many worlds. Sergeant Jasper Emmanuel Skitterway Blue reporting in. Jasper says into the radio after finally getting back to Aridus Valley. You're 10 hours late in this report. Emergency situation required my attention. Riots in the nation of Bright Dawn and what appeared to be a combination coup, smokescreen and terrorist attack. I was requested by the Grand Midwives to help defend and evacuate their people. Confirmed. Soldier, your speech patterns are noticeably different. You are no longer repressing that unusual trill the Earthani possess, command states. There have been a great number of significant events. I am no longer uncomfortable as Earthani. All right, give me a bullet point summary and then I'll get the details. Diplomatic success with the mountain clans. Clues found to origins of Lakran. Several hunts led with the Metak. 2 nations fed. Call for help from the Grand Midwives. Riots in Bright Dawn. Got into a lot of fights in Bright Dawn. Rescued midwives and civilians from Bright Dawn. Found a conspiracy. Shot through gut with laser. Won anyways. Discovered more about conspiracy. Recovered a functional shuttle. Taught local to pilot. Aided evacuation. Had a spiritual awakening. Semi-reincarnated. Now reporting in. There is a poignant silence from command before a big exhale of air comes out. Okay, is it just you? Or is that entire planet completely insane? Yes, Jasper replies with a smirk. All right, explain the spiritual bit of nonsense. It turns out that resurrection is completely possible, but only in areas where certain forms of life avoid. There is an extremely large specimen of these creatures unconscious on Lakran, which drives away others of its kind. My contact with Horus through Axiom started a connection to Emmanuel in the afterlife, and we've been growing closer until this evening where we've completely merged. There is another powerful silence immediately afterwards. Okay, the massive implications of there being an afterlife aside, for now, are you still yourself, soldier? Are you still with us? Yes. What happened to me was as much a reincarnation as a resurrection. I am myself, the same myself I was last time I reported in. I am simply more than I was before, but at no point does self-improvement stop you from being yourself. Jasper answers and there's a pause. All right. This is well and truly over my pay grade. I'm going to connect you to Admiral Cistern. Oh? So you don't want to discuss the implications of not only an afterlife but resurrection and the spiritual predators that make it almost impossible in most situations. Connecting you now. Good God. Didn't see him. Jasper snaps out as quickly as he can before the line is shifted. Didn't see whom? Admiral Cistern asks. I was semi-mocking the communications officer, sir. Jasper responds. I see. You wouldn't have been connected to me without good reason. What's going on? Admiral Cistern asks, not unkindly, but there is a slight air of impatience in his tone. He must be busy. Through some unique traits of Lakran, I have effectively gone from a clone of Emmanuel Skitterway into his reincarnation. My morals and oaths still stand, but I also have his knowledge and emotional attachments. To that end, I am requesting clemency and mercy on my mother, Dr. Morgana Skitterway. I understand that you will stop impersonating my son, or I will send continent crushers to that wretched world. Dr. Skitterway hisses into the conversation. It is no impersonation. Death is a doorway. I have stepped through it again, mother. Jasper replies in flawless trill speech, the language of the Earthani, unpronounceable to other races, but understandable to anyone with working ears. That proves nothing. There are other Earthani on that world that can teach you that language, you lying shit. You named me for the scientists Emin Glock and Uel Blastoga. Emin's mathematical equations and Uel's disproven but still popular theorem of biological scarcity and compensation were the first two things that sprung to mind when you somehow had your first child born, not only male, but of a species you had never encountered. Jasper replies in Araconus, the unifying language of the more spider-like races of the galaxy, older than galactic trade, and once having served a similar role. No, I refuse to be taken in by a farce such as this. Before I entered my cocoon, my favorite food was partially cooked landrak cubes, still bloody in Xivin berry jam. The first time I tried eating it after my cocoon, I nearly choked on it and spent an entire week trying it again and again, insisting that the disgusting mess was somehow good. This is not possible. You taught me that whenever I said it's impossible or it's not possible, then I was wrong and I needed to look at things again. That nothing is impossible to a well-trained mind. That nothing is out of my reach so long as I apply my mind to it. Jasper says softly, and there's a choked-down sob from Dr. Skitterway. I will be leaving my office for the next 15 minutes, Admiral Cistern says. And there's the distinct sound of him getting up and walking away. Jasper is tempted to call for him to stop recording the conversation, but that would be against both military doctrine and common sense. How? Dr. Skitterway demands, and Jasper smiles. It's a good first step. When I reached out to speak with Horus mind to mind, you heard that right. I did. It brushed up against me and told me to pay more attention to Lachran. You've never liked using axiom directly. We have tools for a reason. He quotes her, and there's a slight huff of something. Anyways, that's what started it. The me that was growing in this cloned body brushed up against the me in the afterlife. This started the process, and last night my past self finally noticed something was happening, and true to the new habit I've picked up, I confronted it directly and found myself staring back. And then became one. You can at least keep a story consistent, Dr. Skitterway says before trailing off. There's a sniff, then the sound of an enormously strong claw striking the deck plating. I need more data. I must know for sure. I don't know if you're my little Emmanuel yet. I want you to be, but I must know for sure. I'm coming. Why am I here to begin with? Why was I sent to Lachran? Why did you put Horus's memories into me? I'm grateful. It's turned out for the best. But why? Jasper interrupts whatever speech there is, and there's a telling silence, followed by a sob. Because I was finally letting you go. She whispers, and Jasper can almost feel his heart seize. That it hurt. I lost part of myself when I lost you. It took me centuries to finally let it all go. Then you refused to stay dead. You came back. You came back after I let you go. I'm sorry for spoiling the experiment, Mother. Although you must admit this is very different from my trying to sneak into the labs to take too close a look at the samples. He says, trying to make light of the situation. He knows it's healthy for people to let go and move on. He knows she hates wasting possible chances to learn. It's reasonable in that light. But wow, does it hurt. I've been observing the societal development and releasing some key retroviruses to undo some of the damage that Lachran's breeding style has created. I've also been helping preserve some of the lost artifacts to see whether or not these people can actually recover with minimal aid. Really? He asks. He can sort of see the pattern. But it's been subtle, to be honest. The biggest smoking gun is the fact that the satellites over the world are still in stable orbit, or perhaps been replaced after falling, or maybe being repaired and reactivated. They have everything they need to rebuild, but they haven't. So you've preserved the satellites? And I've been introducing bits of information into their preserved knowledge to try and poke them to see if I can get them to rebuild, Dr. Skitterway says, and Jasper nods. Which is how you would justify getting rid of an empty clone and placing the mind of an undaunted in it. I was a big boot in the rear to try and get this planet moving again without directly involving yourself. Yes, you're a little too good at that, young man. Her tone is disapproving and sarcastic at once. Guilty as charged. I pretty much immediately started things moving. I will be there in 2 weeks' time. I'm at the Viler system, and not all of my current students will be eager to have wild space any closer than a projection on a screen. I'll be there soon. And at the rate I'm going, I may very well have the entire planet conquered. Little moth. Her tone is warning, but there's a touch of amusement there. Is it my fault that they need help, whether they like it or not? Emmanuel! She chides him, and there's a slight series of huffs similar to laughter. Even if you're not, it feels strange to have this kind of hope. I'll be there soon. There's a silence from the other side, and Jasper lets out a sigh. That went about as well as it could. It had hurt to hear her voice. Just how much he wanted to reach out and hug her, to tell her it was all okay and make her proud. He wanted those things. He wanted them so much. Soldier, I assume it was a productive conversation, Admiral Cistern says a little bit later. Sir, yes, sir. She's coming here to Lacran and has admitted to several methods of aiding the local populace surreptitiously while observing them from a distance otherwise. I see. Do you require psychological aid? I'm prepared to get some of our professionals on the radio for you if you require it. No, I think I'm fine, sir. You're our eyes and ears on that world soldier. It would not do for a psychological break. I'm going to schedule a few sessions at minimum. If they're not needed, then that's fine, but we will be erring on the side of caution. Admiral Cistern notes, and there's some tapping. Personal issues aside, how is Lacran doing? I've encountered several conspiracies, sir, as well as several instances of a corporate logo to hint at who was here on Lacran first. Not pirates as we assumed, but the Galactic Preservation Organization, a civilian-run wildlife study and frontier living group. Jasper explains, and Admiral Cistern lets out a little hum of understanding. How interesting. The organization is still around in the modern day. Where did you acquire this evidence? The mountain clans have a robust history and can recall that their ancestors were hired protection for a base. They make use of the corporate symbol in a fair amount of their paintings and structural carvings. 2 squares, one on top of the other, and an equilateral triangle up against it, almost like a crude facsimile of a house turned on its side. Jasper explains. Excellent. This is a wonderful bit of intel. Now you have some form of political power over this world. What is your ability to smooth over the arrival of relief efforts? I've been playing up the idea of the undaunted arriving being both inevitable and wonderful. I've been talking myself down as nothing more than a scout and letting the implications of more like myself and those stronger than myself fester as well. Furthermore, with my stabilizing efforts, things should go fairly smoothly. Excellent. Continue your efforts, soldier. There will be a more convenient source of contact coming. We have some communication pylons on the way alongside logistical and military aid. Do you have anything else to report? Numerous stabilizing activities, and I have recovered more preserved pieces of technology to help the locals and get them used to proper galactic-scale technology again. Very good. Now, from my understanding, this report is 10 hours late. Therefore, you've likely missed a full night's sleep over this. It's not that bad, sir. The universal saying of a soldier pushing themselves too far. Admiral Cistern replies with a definite smile in his voice. Eat a meal and go to bed, soldier. Continue your report when you've woken up tomorrow. Sir. Yes, sir. Dismissed, soldier, Admiral Cistern says and cuts the call. Jasper just looks down at the radio and cannot help but yawn before placing it back on its pedestal. Well, I've been following orders so far. Not going to stop now. 10 minutes later, his armor is in a bundle at the foot of his oversized bed, and his sword's hanging off large spikes in the walls. It takes 15 minutes for a snore that's more like a chime to sound out from him,